Thank you. Thank you for being here and listening to my personal story. I am a big foodie. I come from a family whose entire world revolves around food and the end-to-end dining experience, which means to them from the appetizer all the way through the dessert. And some of the best memories in my life have occurred over an amazing meal. But some of the most haunting and horrific memories in my life have occurred because of an amazing meal. I'm going to tell you a little story. One night back in 2008, I was out to dinner with a group of friends after having flown in from an international business trip. I spent about 2 weeks in China and Hong Kong. And we were out at a restaurant that we've been to many times before, and we ordered a bunch of dishes, and we're just having a really great time catching up, and I'm catching up on all the gossip. And somewhere in the middle of that dinner, my body started to feel super weird, like it was tingling and really itchy. And my first thought was, jet lag must be kicking in because there were no visible signs of anything wrong. But I decided to pop a Benadryl, which I always keep in my purse, to stop from itching and keep on enjoying my meal. So after a really long dinner and a lot of great food and wine, I finally decided to call it quits and head home because now both the jet lag and the Benadryl were actually quickly putting me to sleep. So about 2 hours after I went to bed, I was very abruptly woken up because I had the worst chest pain I have ever felt in my entire life. My chest was super tight, and it felt like it was on fire, something that I'd never felt like before. And I was starting to have a lot of difficulty breathing. And so my initial reaction was I had too much spicy food and red wine at dinner, and maybe it was like acid reflux. And I was so groggy from the Benadryl that somehow I crawled out of bed, and I turned on the light in the bathroom, and to my horror, I saw that my entire body was covered in huge red hives, from my scalp all the way down to my toes. And seeing this monster in the mirror, I did the immediate thing that I knew how to do at that time. I started hysterically crying, which was a really, really bad idea because it also caused me to hyperventilate in addition to having horrible chest pain. I mean, I was a complete and thorough mess. And as the chaos around me began, I almost felt like I stepped out of my body and I was just staring at myself literally die. As I frantically ran around to try to find my cell phone and all of my luggage and dial 911. And this was the 18th time in my life that food has tried to kill me. So we learned that I had food allergies and asthma when I was around age 4. I was eating a sandwich of Skippy peanut butter and Welch's grape jelly, and I instantly broke out into hives. But I also went into anaphylactic shock. So that means that my throat started to swell up really quickly and I couldn't breathe. And that would have killed me had I not made it to the ER in time. The thought that I could be allergic to food, it completely crippled my parents. They had no idea what that meant, and they had no idea why my other sibling didn't have this problem. And the icing on the cake was when the doctor told us that there is no cure for food allergies. The only way to prevent a reaction is by strict avoidance of the food item. So, I mean, that sounds easy enough, right? Don't eat whatever food is going to make you sick. But it's not necessarily that easy. And in my lifetime, I've been to the ER 18 times due to my food allergies, 4 of those times in a full-on anaphylaxis condition. Now, in my first allergy incident, we learned that I had a severe peanut and tree nut allergy. So as a family, we had to come together, and we had to figure out some kind of plan on how this kid was just going to eat. Because it felt like peanuts and tree nuts were just like everywhere. When you get that kind of news, it feels like they're just falling down from the sky, and you have to duck so that they don't hit you. And, you know, life as I know it was super complicated now. My parents knew they couldn't be with me 100%, and that most people didn't know about food allergies at the time, let alone how to deal with them. And it certainly wasn't a topic that we were talking about all the time. So in order to survive at that young age, the number one thing I had to do was I had to learn how to cook. But I so did not want to do this. I wanted to be normal and go to school and hang out with my friends after school and try and be cool. I so did not want to hang out with my mom in the kitchen learning how to chop onions. And I really would have died if anybody found out that I was allergic to food, figuratively speaking. But when you can't eat a lot of the same things that all the other kids can, it's not something that you can hide. And, people find out. And at that young age, kids can be really cruel. I remember this one time where, kids in my school were finding out, and somebody called me Scooby-Doo. And still to this day, I'm not quite sure how a peanut allergy and Scooby-Doo fit together, but I was super pissed because I would have rather have been Scrappy-Doo than Scooby-Doo. So if anybody knows how they come together, please let me know. But, unfortunately, I did spend a lifetime of being the weirdo, being bullied, and being called the nutty girl because I was allergic to food. And it made no sense. But as I got older, like the empire, I struck back. And I also, with the help of my parents and my doctors, I also spent a lifetime of learning how to cook, educating myself about this subject, researching a lot. And when things didn't make sense, and a lot of times things didn't make sense, I asked a lot of questions. And somewhere along the way, I did find an inner voice to speak up for myself and start telling people that I had food allergies and I needed help with eating because I just wanted some semblance of a normal life. Because trying to figure out why this is happening to over 15 million Americans who have food allergies is completely mind-blowing. A food allergy reaction sends someone to the ER in this country every 3 minutes. So that means during this talk, 3 to 4 people would have already gone to the ER due to their food allergies. Food allergies among children in this country have increased about 50% between the years of 1997 and 2011. So why? Unfortunately, today, doctors still don't know 100% what causes food allergies, but they believe it's in part genetics and in part environmental. Now, our genetics don't necessarily change that quickly, but our environment actually can. And there are many theories out there as to what the cause of food allergies is that are being researched, discussed, and heavily debated. And one of the things that you hear about almost on a daily basis in our news stems around our Western diet and just what's going on in our food supply in this country. So food in the United States is probably some of the unhealthiest lab-altered foods among any country in the entire world. Our Western diet is hopped up on saturated fat, sugar, and salt. And these types of processed food items now contain GMOs, which are damaging our immune systems, making us more susceptible to developing allergies and other illnesses. Now, study results actually showing that junk foods like these are actually altering healthy gut bacteria in our bodies, which we essentially need for digestion, and it is replacing it with harmful bacteria, which is just opening up the floodgates for things like allergic reactions, antibiotic resistance, toxicity, and cancer to proliferate through our bodies. So this is just one theory, our Western diet, amongst all the other theories out there, but this is definitely a leading contender as to a cause for food allergies. Now, back in 2008, when I had that allergy incident, it was definitely the worst allergy incident I've ever had in my entire life. And I spent about 28 hours in the ER until they were ready to release me because they had to make sure I was breathing normally and for my hives to just subside. So when they sent me home with like a shopping bag full of medication, and they sent me on my merry way. And the next morning I woke up and I had hives all over my body again. And I panicked. I was breathing okay, but I panicked and I speed dialed my allergist and I popped a bunch of the pills in that bag. And I went back to the ER because I had no idea what was happening. And good thing was I was fine. Somehow got about my day, went to bed, and the next morning after that, I woke up with hives all over my body yet again. I woke up with hives all over my body every day for the next 1 year of my life. So if you just think about this for a minute, for 365 days, I was waking up with huge red welts, like this big, from my scalp all the way down to my toes. Like there was no place that was not covered. And I had to now go about my life. I couldn't just live in a bubble. And I had to go to the gym, or after that I was going to my office, or I wanted to see my friends and go to happy hour, or God forbid, I was actually going to go out on a date. I mean, the word nightmare does not even suffice for all the emotions that you could be feeling at that time. And if anybody actually did go out on a date with me during that time, I truly say namaste and thank you to you, because I was horrendous. So it was such a horrible time for me, but I was convinced that this was not my food allergies, because I just spent 2 weeks traveling through China and Hong Kong, eating the amazing food with no incidents. And the day I come home, I'm in the ER almost dying. So I thought it was like a bug that bit me or something I caught on the airplane. And I went to every single doctor in the Bay Area that would see me, from primary care to allergists to dermatology to OB-GYN to infectious disease. And they all concluded that this was a really severe food allergy incident, which created a lot of toxins in my body, and those toxins could potentially take a lot of time and a lot of medication just to be released out. So it was at that time that I really started thinking, am I actually allergic to food, or am I allergic to what's being done to it in this country? Now, wherever we end up on what the exact cause of food allergies is, and I do hope we get there in my lifetime, it doesn't change the current end result. Food in this country is making us sick and is even killing us. 10 years ago, I was the only one at the table that had to have like a 15-minute conversation with a chef at a restaurant about my dietary restrictions. But today, almost every time I dine out, there's someone at the table with a gluten intolerance, a shellfish allergy, garlic annihilates their system, lactose intolerant, doesn't eat cilantro, or on some special diet. I mean, this is San Francisco. Everybody here is on some special diet. And it's as if our entire dining landscape has changed since I was a kid. And now it's almost abnormal if you do not have a dietary restriction like a food allergy. Now, my story may be about food allergies, but yours could be about disease like diabetes or weight issues or just overall healthy living. So I do want you to be aware, and I want you to care about what's going on in our food supply in this country, because this is what's going on in our food supply. Research shows that living in this country for a decade or more may actually raise the risk of certain allergies, food and environmental. So I want you to care, because some of you may walk out the door today and develop food allergies. I want you to care because deciding what food you put into your body is your choice, but not being given the full disclosure of what's in our food is a crime. I want you to care because we all need a voice that stands up for and is more involved with the ethics of food in this country. So a lot of people always ask me, how do you do it? How have I managed to survive all these years? So I have a mantra: stay safe, live healthy, and eat well. And I think it's really great for everyone to actually have a personal mantra. And everything I do in my life kind of revolves around this. Because to me, wellness is not just about the food that you put into your body. It's about the body, mind, spirit, and emotions all aligning together for an existence with intent and purpose. And my intention surely has never been to feed my body for nourishment, and then a minute later, I could be dead. So I had to come up with a bunch of steps on how do I do this, and I'm going to share my top 3 with you. starting with the stay safe part, which is cooking real food. So I did kind of get over myself, and I spent the time in the kitchen with my mom, and I learned how to cook. So I'm super blessed. I have two parents that are both amazing cooks. And I would so love to see them in like a Chopped Mom versus Dad series at one point, because that would be really awesome. And they grew up in an Indian culture where the mom went to the market every day and she cooked all of the meals. And their food was really simplistic. It was vegetables from a garden, it was lean proteins here and there, it was whole grains mixed with a lot of herbs and spices. So cooking essentially became my baseline foodie plan, and this style of cooking became what I did. And I did that to improvise when I needed to and so that I can survive. And I learned a lot of things about cooking, which I didn't know, that kind of transcended my entire life. So cooking was not hard. I think we psych ourselves out about it, but I actually spent the time to figure out and learn how to do it. And once I did, I realized how quickly I could pull things together. And I also realized that I could make whatever dish I wanted or whatever meal with just 5 or 6 fresh ingredients. It didn't have to be anything canned. It didn't have to be anything processed or boxed. I actually like going to the market on a daily basis and just walking up and down the aisles and seeing what they have and then pulling it together for a great meal. And I also learned how social it was. When you grow up with a lot of food allergies and you're dealing with the whole bullying situation, friends situation might not be in your favor all the time. And my parents are really social people. They had dinner parties, 4 or 5 nights a week. So there were always people in our house, and there were people in the kitchen, and they were just having a great time and laughing and having, eating great food. And so spending this time in the kitchen with one or both of my parents and talking and laughing and kind of learning life lessons and being passed down generational cooking techniques was just priceless. Cooking is the best investment that I made into my health, and I do hope it's the best investment that you will decide to make into your health. So living healthy, asking questions about your body. So my body is definitely my temple, and I want to know what's going on with it, and I want to treat it well. There's no nook or cranny left unturned. I don't want to be in the dark about anything going on so that I know what to actually do with it. Nearly 1/3 of us think that we have food allergies. We just don't know for sure. And it's not really fair to someone who could help you, like a chef in a restaurant, if you yourself don't know if your issue might be a sensitivity, an intolerance, an actual allergy, or just plain in your head. Take the time and visit with your doctor and get the necessary testing that you need to figure out what's going on with your body. I do this about every year, every 2 years, because the goal should not be for us to keep on restricting food items when we live in a time of just amazing culinary artistry out there. But it really starts with you, with the help of your doctor, figuring out kind of what's going on. The eat well part. So I do love to eat, and I love to go out and try all the new restaurants. So advocating for myself. I have so many items on my do not eat list, and I don't expect anybody to memorize it. So I created this super cool food allergy card that is laminated, and I carry one in every single bag that I own. And on one side, it lists in grave detail all the things I cannot eat, and I'm sure you are wondering how I'm possibly going to eat lunch today. But I always keep a sandwich in my bag, just in case. And the other side has a super gratuitous photo of myself, because people need to know what I look like if they're actually cooking for me. And I created this card because I want to be able to enjoy the same dining experiences as all of you. So handing this card to a chef in a restaurant and having them put it on the line and stare at it when they're making my meal so that it's safe for me to eat is priceless. This card is translated into many languages because I travel internationally, and it gets so much love everywhere I go. Not just because of the super gratuitous photo of myself, but because it actually starts the conversation between me and the person who's making my meal, so they know my limits and bounds, and so a lot of times I end up kind of helping them with how to help me. And so I end up with this not only meal that's safe for me to eat, but something that's incredibly delicious. And I've had so many chefs who have just seen this as a wonderful challenge and then made something for me that's just not even on the menu, and I'm just so grateful for that. So those are my top 3 things. You know, it's interesting, in 2015, somehow everything has come full circle for me. I used to be alone in my struggle with food. I no longer am. This is now a problem for all of us to create a food supply that is healthier for people and for the planet. We shouldn't let back and let others dictate to us what we should be eating, but rather we should be pushing the limits for a food supply that does not make us sick, so that we can all enjoy amazing dining experiences which only give us the best of life memories. The one thing that I will say that I think I've always had going for me, besides a ton of luck, is a really great attitude about the whole thing. I mean, everybody has something. Having food allergies is just my thing. But I knew a long time ago that I would never let this run my life, and I will not let it ruin my life. And I did learn that I may not be able to control every situation nor its outcome, but I can definitely control my attitude and how I deal with things. So for every day that I get to still be on this earth, I'm very thankful, and I spend that time to advocate for a food supply that is healthy for us and that doesn't make us sick. And I do that for myself, I do it for all of you, and I do it for all the generations to come so that they don't have to deal with the same issues that I did growing up. You all have a voice, and your voice really does matter, so I hope that you use it to speak up for a food supply that doesn't make us sick. Thank you.